happy to welcome our next team, Team 45. The topic we are going to present is No Place Like a Home, addressing youth housing exclusion for a more sustainable society.
Good morning, we are Team 45. Today, our research topic is No Place Like Home, addressing youth housing exclusion for a more sustainable society. I'm Lewis.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Elizabeth.
Okay, this is our project scheme. Before we start addressing the problem of youth housing exclusion, we must spell out the definition of housing justice. Housing justice represents the fundamental right of individuals to a safe, adequate, affordable, and dignified living environment. However, Taiwanese people are now facing soaring health crises, which have rendered home ownership increasingly unattainable and have ultimately created generational anxiety. Okay, based on Taiwanese government data, in 2025, the median mortgage credit ratio rose to 36%, meaning that households must spend nearly half of their disposable incomes on mortgage payments. For young adults who are just entering the workforce and lack inherited access, this financial pressure can be overwhelming. Soaring house prices may lead to issues that not only reduce consumption and living standards, but also contribute to a low fertility rate, further intensifying Taiwan's demographic challenges. Our project examines how current targeted government policy can help reduce housing pressures on young people. Also, we promote both we explore other alternative options to promote both social equality and long-term economic sustainability in Taiwan.
To evaluate the necessity and potential impact of these policy interventions, it is first essential to quantify the widening gap between household incomes and property values. Housing exclusion is not just an economic statistic, it's a wall-blocking the young generation from an independent life. In Taipei, the house price to income ratio has been severe for a decade, staying between 11 and 16. Far beyond the world-based sustainable range of 3 to 6. Beyond ownership, Taiwan's rental market has become a trap. A huge part of it is that Taiwan's rental market is highly non-transparent. Landlords often hide their rental income to avoid taxes, leaving tenants with no official contracts for protection. On top of that, prices are exploding quickly. According to official data from March 2024, the rental tax hit a record high of 105.57, staying above 2% growth for 8 straight months. While official numbers show a gradual rise, the actual price jumps for release reports are much steeper, leaving tenants with paychecks that simply can't keep up. Hence, many are forced to give up on their dream of living in a decent home. There's a weird paradox in Taiwan. While Taiwan boasts an incredible 85% of ownership rate, it is a generational illusion where property wealth belongs to the older generation. This imbalance has created a divide, causing young people to fall into 2 main categories of disadvantage. First is the squeeze middle, who represents those earning above the threshold for social housing eligibility, yet remaining priced out of the property market. Then there is another group of people whose parents do not own much property, leading to a harsh reality. The future of the young generation isn't defined by their degrees, but by their family's real estate. To address the current issue, Taiwan's government launched the New Youth Home Loan Policy. It aims to help non-home owners achieve stability amidst global inflation and rising interest rates. But there's a catch. By pumping all that loan money into the market, they actually fuel demand, pushing house prices even higher. In parallel, our research extended to the 30 billion NT$ rent subsidy program. This program elects income limits and adds support for families. But its implementation has sometimes led to a policy dysfunction. The government's expectation for tenants to verify legal compliance creates a gap, as young renters typically face a significant lack of information regarding their landlord's tax and building status. What's worse is that if the government finds out the house doesn't meet the legal requirements, they demand money back from the tenant, not the landlord. This leaves the most vulnerable people stuck with an unexpected debt they can't afford to pay back. In conclusion, neither of these strategies has closed the gap in practice. This policy vacuum is exactly why we need
Dimensions, we have considered three dimensions of difficulties and requirements. Due to low housing affordability and social exploitation, young people in Taiwan often bear the burden of buying a home. We consider that rental affordability is far more important than housing price. To address this, we have proposed two policy options to resist their housing costs while ensuring living quality. Thereby advancing your housing justice through rent rather than ownership. Here are our two policy options. Policy option 1, strengthen the domestic rental market. Our blueprint includes 5 main measures. First, establish an independent and impartial public authority to manage the housing rental market. Second, ensure information is transparent and open by extending actual rental prices registrations and rental price map. These ideas comes from the 2 pictures below: a rental price map along Taipei MRT lines and the UK rental price map from Zoopla. Particularly, Zoopla is a website combining actual transaction prices with current rental market listing prices and to create its own map. Third, provide tax reduction for rental properties to encourage landlords to resist their housing units. Fourth, set up a rental housing quality regulations. On the right side are the items we think should be included, such as fire safety equipment, earthquake resistance, wiring inspection, mold and moisture control. Last, enact a whistleblower provision and provide free dispute settlement system, ensure fairness between landlords and renters. This idea is inspired by Renters' Right Act in the UK. This act aims at 5 main measures: abolish no-fault evictions, no bidding war, decent home standards, private renting sector database, and private landlord abutment. This measure can effectively ensure renter rights.
Okay, our policy option 2 is establish a cooperative housing system. First, the government allocates specific parcels of land for housing cooperatives during urban renewal projects. Second, residents or community groups form a housing cooperative to jointly fund the acquisition of service rights, design their own buildings, and collectively manage the neighborhood. Third, residents should form a self-organized housing committee to make decisions regarding maintenance and management. And also, residents in housing cooperatives must commit to a non-resale covenant, ensuring that the properties remain outside of the speculative market. Our policy option 2 is inspired by housing cooperative system in Zurich, Switzerland. Housing cooperatives in Switzerland began to take root in the early 20th century when housing shortages and speculation became acute in urban areas. Until today, nearly 23% of newly built housing units are housing cooperatives. They have proven that housing cooperatives are socially effective, economically sustainable, and also promote environmental responsibility by incorporating sustainable buildings and renovation practice. Let's take a look at some characteristics of housing cooperatives in Switzerland. First, the cost covering rent principle. instead of charging according to market demand, the rent for housing cooperatives is strictly calculated based on actual cost, which makes cooperative rents in Zurich 20% lower than private ones. Second is Baurecht in German, or ground lease strategies. In this mode, the government retains land ownership and grants cooperatives the right to build for 60 to 100 years. In exchange for low-interest leases, cooperatives should agree to build sustainable and high-quality buildings and strictly follow the cost-covering rent principle. Third is a self-sustaining financial system. Since 1975, the federal government has established revolving funds that offer low-interest loans to new cooperatives. Also, cooperatives reinvest surplus money back into the funds to support the development of the new project. And last is cluster apartment, which maximize quality of life while saving costs and spaces. These communities are self-organized and collectively managed, emphasizing active participation for residents themselves.
Here's the evaluation of policy option 1. Advantage: first, unified management with stronger enforcement. Second, improve market efficiency by avoiding insufficient information. Third, better assurance of housing quality. Fourth, policy option 1 can prevent the underground rental market. Disadvantage: first, high administrative and management costs. It requires significant manpower and funding. Second, landlord research due to the multiple limitations. Further impact: policy option 1 can create a more mature and institutionalized rental market. It can give more options and protection for young people to encourage renting over buying and potentially affect housing prices.
And there is the evaluation of policy option 2. For advantage, first, it can remove housing from the asset market to prevent speculation and uphold the right to adequate housing. Second, it can foster a stronger sense of community cohesion and consciousness. And also, it can establish a sustainable system like Switzerland. For disadvantage, first, there is a lack of institutional experience and regulatory void within Taiwan's financial and law system. Also, the housing cooperative system is not yet a mainstream approach, allowed heavily on social communication, consensus building, and establishing trust. For further impact, it can strengthen the social stability and sustainability. Also, it can reframe housing as a social good. With this in mind, Taiwan can transform from a profit-driven market to a more diversified ecosystem.
Recommendation: we finally choose policy option 1 to carry out for 4 main reasons. First, policy option 1 improves the existing system rather than creating a new one. It can get higher public acceptance. Second, policy option 1 can benefit most young people, while policy option 2 can have only a few participants. Third, policy option 1 needs minimal new land, while policy option 2 requires additional urban renewal land. Fourth, policy option 1 can give more visibility to relocate, while policy option 2 requires committee to approve. Due to this reason, we think policy option 1 is more realistic and will work better in Taiwan.
In conclusion, Taiwan's high housing prices are attributed to past policy, current laws, and traditional social values, making it difficult for young people to achieve housing justice. Although the government has introduced various policies, they failed to address youth housing exclusion effectively. Therefore, we propose two alternative housing options: improve the rental market and establish the housing cooperative system. We found that the most practical way to improve housing, to provide affordable housing, is to improve the rental market, making it transparent, fair, and well regulated. With stronger protection, young people are able to focus on their professional performance and provide long-term profit for a sustainable society.
Any questions from our judges?
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, what I really appreciate is that you guys approach a very real problem with a very practical approach. You guys know this is a serious issue, and you don't just say, magic, everybody gets a house, right? So we understand it's a complicated problem, and you guys treated it that way. So I really appreciate that presentation. One question is that with that practical approach, you've addressed this issue of housing justice, right? Not housing ownership. So I understand the difference there. Housing justice means we get people in a decent home, right? So the idea here is we improve the rental market, the rental sort of system that exists. Do we have, within that policy, do we have a pathway towards home ownership that we can kind of include in that policy? Right now, we've got a great solution for housing justice. I just wonder where we get to home ownership.
We actually focus on the rent affordability because of Taiwan's high housing prices. And it's complicated and hard to deal with. So we think we should first address this house problem and further to improve the home ownership. So we think it's gradual.
Thank you.
Is it? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the team for the time.